Let's continue our discussion pertaining to depository institutions or organizations. We left off discussing interest rates on deposits and loans. We talked about when you have a certificate of deposit, which is known as a CD. It's an instrument that's issued by a depository institution that again gives you it's a specified amount to invest, a specified interest rate known as the risk-free rate, and it has a specified maturity date. So, for example, you may purchase a CD that costs $1,000. It may have a 2% interest rate. It may mature in 12 months. So, at the end of that 12-month time period, you receive back the amount you invested, the $1,000, plus the interest earned over that 12-month period. The interest rate is known as a risk-free rate because it is a guaranteed rate on that particular investment. In contrast, we have what's known as a risk premium. This is an additional return beyond the risk-free rate that can be earned from a deposit guaranteed by the government. So there are certain type of government securities that you can purchase, and they have a guaranteed rate of return. That's known as the risk-free rate. However, we can make an investment with other institutions that may yield a higher return. The difference between the rate that is being offered by these institutions that's over the government rate is known as the risk premium. Now, there's a risk because there's a possibility that when you buy securities from companies, there's a chance that you may not receive the amount that you actually invested. And we'll talk more about that. When it comes to loan rates, these are the rates charged by the institutions to loan money to their depositors, their customers, etc. And always the loan rate will be higher than the rate paid to depositors. So think about it. Perhaps you have a car loan through your bank, a mortgage, or some other type of loan, possibly. Think about the interest rate you're paying on that car loan or your mortgage. I'll wait. Now, think about the interest rate you're earning on the deposits that you're making with that bank. Which rate is higher? I'll let you answer that question. The economy has an impact on the risk premium. Let's say that you want to purchase a bond, which is a form of investment from a firm, an organization. That bond may have a specified interest rate they're going to pay you. Okay? Now remember that the percent over the rate you could get from a government security is known as the risk premium. Now the company that are issuing these securities, such as a bond, they must pay a higher risk premium to sell their securities when the economy is in a weakened condition. Why is that? Well, when the economy is in a weakened condition, we don't have as much money to invest in because we try to take care of our other obligations. With that being said, these companies will offer a higher risk premium to make the securities look more attractive. Now, you will still have certain investors who are reluctant to purchase these securities because they fear that these firms might go bankrupt and not repay their debt because, again, we're in a weakened economy. Most investors prefer to make investment when the economy is in favorable economic climate. Now, this is not true for all investors because you have certain investors who are more of a risk taker, and they would rather buy investments when the economy is weak because they get a higher return on their investment. They understand that there's a risk that those companies may not pay them back and they're willing to take on that risk. You heard the phrase, the higher the risk, the higher the reward. If you want to learn more about the interest rates that have been offered by these financial institutions, you can go to the Bloomberg.com website, go to the market section, click on the rate plus bonds, and you can find a plethora of information pertaining to interest rates. Now, there are some twisted perceptions of the risk premium. Some investors are attracted to investment for the wrong reasons. They pursue risky investments to make up for a limited income. Meaning that when some investors who have limited resources to invest in, they try to find the investment that's going to yield them the highest return. And nothing is wrong with that at all. However, often those investments that's yielding the highest return, they also come with the most risk. What we're saying is be sensible. Understand that when you have limited income, you really can't take on too much of a risk because you can't afford to lose it. So, again, when you're trying to make investment decisions, it's good to take some risk, but depending upon your resources, that should determine the amount of risk you're willing to take. The more limited your income, then the more limited risk you should be willing to take. Okay? That's just my recommendation. Now, when it comes to risk tolerance, it depends upon your needs as well. If you know you're going to need a certain sum of money, say within a year, you should take no to minimum risk. Because if you put your money into an investment trying to yield a higher return, let's say you buy stock, but the time period is so short that you may lose that investment. And in that situation, you may not even have what you began with the year before. So we're saying the amount of time required when you're going to need the funds should also have an impact on your decision making. So if I need my money relatively quickly, maybe I'll buy a 6-month CD because a CD would give me a guaranteed rate of return. Although it's a lower return rate, it also is low to minimum risk. Now, if you need a portion of your money when your investment matures, you can afford to take some risk. You're like, say, well, I don't need all the money, so I can afford to take some risk so that if I happen to lose some of that investment, then I'll still be okay. Now, no choice is right for all investors because it's going to be investor specific. Some are going to be more conservative. Some are going to be what we call moderate. Others are going to be what we call more aggressive. So what type of investor are you? Are you a risk taker? Are you going to be more moderate or going to be more on the conservative side? So if you want to know more about interest rates, you can go to the website bankrate.com, search for the rate for Federal Reserve, and you'll have a better understanding of the interest rates that the government charges to these institutions such as banks. And once you understand that, you will have a better understanding of how interest rates are being determined on the deposits that you make with those banks, as well as the interest rate they're going to charge you on things such as your mortgages, as well as your student loans, or it could be your car loan. So you'll learn about something called the prime interest rate when you visit this website. This is just a sample chart that shows you the annual interest rate that you might receive on different type of deposits. Let's say if you bought a CD, and CDs have a maturity date. What you'll notice is that the longer the maturity period, the higher the rate of interest you're going to earn. But in this case, that CD you're not going to receive until 10 years from now. But it's going to yield you almost a 4% annual interest rate compared to a CD that matures in 6 months may have a rate of only 0.45%. For the longer the term before the CD matures, meaning it becomes due, then it yields you a higher interest rate. I do want to caution you that with CDs, if you take the funds out before they mature, they will charge you an actual penalty for doing that. It's just a chart showing the interest rates compared to the maturity time. And again, you can see the longer your funds have been invested, you're going to yield a higher rate of return on your investment. Okay? Now, this is an interesting chart. It is comparing the 1-year interest rate earned on a CD compared to the interest rate on a loan for an individual. And this is going from 1993 to 2014. So as you can see, the interest rates on CDs have value for time. So for a CD maturing in 1 year back in 2000, the rate was about 5.5%. But compared to 2014, it was down to 0.5%. But also notice the relationship between interest rates and loans. At the time when the CDs were paying a higher interest rate, 5.5%, the average loan had a rate of 10.5%. So yes, they're paying a high return on the investment, but they're also charging you a higher interest rate when you borrow money from the bank. So there's a direct correlation between the rate of interest that you're receiving off your investment compared to the rate of interest that's been charged by the financial institution. Okay? So not to get too technical, understand that the Federal Reserve has an impact on the interest rate at all times because their job is to control the actual supply of money. They look at the amount of money that's been deposited into checking accounts, savings account, currently held by the public. They look at the amount of money that's been used to purchase investment in the government, such as U.S. Treasury bonds, and the Federal Reserve, they try to control the actual flow of money. So to show a little chart, the federal increases the supply of funds in the banking system. When the federal government puts more money into the banking system, then the interest rates are going to actually decrease because there's additional funds available to be loaned out to the consumers. When that takes place, different firms are willing to borrow money to expand their business because the rates are lower. Individuals and firms are willing to borrow funds because, again, the rates are lower, and that is going to increase spending and improve the economic conditions overall. So perhaps you're saying, well, why don't the Feds just keep putting money into the banking systems to keep this going on? Well, because actually if they put too much money into the banking system, that has an impact as well. So we won't go into too much detail into that, but the interest rates are based upon the demand for funds by an organization, and it's also determined by the need of the Federal Reserve to control the actual flow of funds as well. Okay? So you should think about what are the most important characteristics to you when you're trying to determine where you're going to invest your money. Is it location? Is it interest rate? Is it the fees that they're charging? You have to determine what characteristics are the most important to you when trying to determine your financial institution. So again, think about the interest rate, how they impact you, the rates of mortgages, on personal loans, location. These are the factors you should be thinking about when you're trying to determine how to determine what's going to be your financial institution. Okay? So this information will help you to make a more informed decision on how to choose a financial institution. Okay? All right.